Federal agencies have 60 days to identify all critical software at their offices. A new White House memo says agencies must implement security measures within the next year. Tony Scott is CEO of the Tony Scott Group. He's former federal chief information officer. Tony, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So what prompted the White House to put this memo out?
Well, I think what you've seen over the last few months, if not year or so, is the rise in ransomware attacks, and a lot of the cause of ransomware or the vulnerabilities that are being exploited have to do with software that hasn't been upgraded or patched, or may contain vulnerabilities that the institution either didn't know about or wasn't aware of. And I think it's the reality that in most institutions today, there's a really complex set of both infrastructure and applications that run that organization. And I think this is an attempt to force institutions to look at the critical software that they have an inventory, and then ultimately the goal is to understand what vulnerabilities and risk you're taking on by using that software, and the patches and updates that need to be made to that software. So I think that's the ultimate goal.
There's guidance that's been put out by NIST. What do agencies need to start doing now to ensure their compliance with that guidance?
Well, I think the first thing is, have an inventory, understand what it is you have, understand its role, and then secondly, it's understand what vulnerabilities come along with that software. So, are there patches that need to be applied? Are there updates that are needed? Those are the sort of primary things.
What do you think the hardest part is going to be in getting this done in 60 days?
Well, I think it's in every organization there are silos. There are people who run the networks, there are people who run the applications, there are people who manage infrastructure, and it's been very clear to me as a CIO in the private sector that getting the silos to talk to one another and communicate is probably the hardest piece. So I think for agencies, we're going to see that same problem, that there's a lot of players and a lot of functional expertise in various silos in the organization, but getting cross communication going so that they can present a unified picture and a strategy to the CIO, even just for reporting purposes, I think is going to be one of the sort of really big challenges.
Do we know what the cost of implementing this order will be? Is it budgeted for?
Well, I would say it's a really hard question. Some agencies that are further along in the journey will find this relatively easy to do. If you're starting from scratch, if you've been a sort of a foot dragger in terms of modernization, you're going to find this probably pretty burdensome, and you would need additional budget. So I think it just depends on where the agency is. During my tenure, we saw a pretty wide gap. We had agencies that were really trying to stay on top of things, and had progressively done so, and then we had other agencies that were pretty far behind the power curve.
I wonder if this provides new opportunities for contractors, or will the process be internal to the agencies? What do you think?
Well, I think it's going to have to involve the whole community. There's no way you're going to get this done without really leveraging the strengths and abilities of your contractors, of your staff, and even other agencies that you interact with. So there's hardly a single agency in the federal government that stands alone. It has lots of interfaces typically to other agencies, maybe even to the private sector, and so on. And so one of the challenges is really understanding what do I own and what am I responsible for versus this other institution, whether it's someone I've contracted with or another agency, and their capability might form a critical part of your own capability. So, there's a lot of blurry lines in some cases there, and I think sorting all that out is going to be interesting as well.
Well, Tony, we'll watch that as that 60-day deadline approaches. Thanks so much for being on the program.
I appreciate it. Thanks. Have a great day.